Hey, I'm Mural Joe, and I want to show you some basic principles of perspective that I use in everything that I paint, and that you could use in your next project. Now, perspective is just the way that things look from where you're looking. To understand it better, let me take you to the whiteboard and show you just how it works and why it exists in the first place. Your eye is round, and it receives light that comes from all angles, but only the light that comes in at an exact 90-degree angle makes it all the way to the sensor. So then the light coming from here is going to enter the eye down here where it's in 90-degree angle. It's not going to enter up here because that's not a 90-degree angle. It's going to bounce different directions. The light from up here is going to enter the eye right here, and it's not going to enter down here because that's not a 90-degree angle. So everything has an exact place it enters. If I have an object that's right here and it's taking up half of the field of view, you know, this is the rest of the field of view right here, then it's going to appear a certain size. But then if I move it twice as far away, same size object, look how much of the field of view it's taking up. It's taking up a quarter of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. So you see, every time I get further away, the proportion of the field of view that it takes up gets smaller and smaller. So things appear smaller as they get further away because that field of view is getting bigger and bigger as the distance increases. So if I hold up this marker about a foot away from the lens of the camera, you can see it takes up the whole field of view. But now if I move it twice as far, about 2 feet away, then you can see now it takes up about half of the field of view. So that I call the rule of halves and doubles, and I can use that information as I'm plotting out my mural. I'll show you how. The first thing I need to do is decide how big things are, because if I don't know how big they are in the first place, then I don't know what size to make them in my picture. So every painting is not life size. I have to decide, is this a life-size mural where a 6-foot guy is going to be 6 foot tall at 0 distance on the surface of my painting? Or am I going to scale it down, like something you can hang on a wall? You know, if you frame a little picture on a wall, those things are not close to life size. A tree might only be this big. So I need to establish how big things are right here on the surface of the canvas. To do that, let's make a guy. So let me explain this. As you have objects in your field of view, and you take all those objects and you move them further and further away, nothing on the right side ever crosses over to the left side, nothing on the left side ever crosses over to the right side. Everything gets closer to the center of your line of vision, but never crosses over. And so where they meet in the middle, where they are as far away as they can possibly be, is called a vanishing point. And if I have a plane that's getting further and further away, we call it the horizon, where it gets to the center and cannot go any further and is as far away as it can possibly be represented, infinitely far. So I'm going to establish a horizon now that is going to be at this guy's eye level. We'll say his eyes are right about here. And this is also going to be the viewer's eye level. So now any size object, for instance, if I have an object that is from here all the way over to this edge of the picture, then that object is going to become a single point by the time it gets to the horizon, okay? No matter what direction it's going. So now I'll make a line going from here to this point, right here. So now, if this was a road, which is what it looks like right now, it's vanishing to what we call a vanishing point, where it goes to the horizon. And so if I have another object, I can have an indefinite number of vanishing points on a horizon. And they could be any size object. So if I have another one here, let's just make another line. Let's make a vanishing point here. We could make these anywhere. And I could just make this coming out here. And then I could just make this one coming down here. I could have a whole bunch of these in the picture going any direction. So now I'm going to establish some distance markers using what I call the rule of halves and doubles. So at half of the distance to the horizon from the base of the picture, the distance is double what it was at the base. So if I make a mark right through the middle, I'm just going to draw a line right through the middle of this picture. Okay, now every time I cut the distance from any point to the horizon in half, the distance doubles. So I'm going to cut this distance in half. Distance to the horizon, right in the middle now between my 2 times marker and my horizon marker. Make another middle line, okay, all the way across here. The distance here is now 4 times the distance at the base of the picture. Now if I cut this in half again, the distance is going to double again. And that's going to be the 8 times distance marker. Okay, now I'm going to cut it in half again. I'm always cutting in half the distance to the horizon. Okay, so going from my times 8 line, now I'm making my times 16 line. I'm going to cut that line in half again. Now I'm going to do another. Okay, so now I've established all of these number markers, and you can see I ran out of space in here. That background is getting really scrunched. So I came over here and I just squeezed in a couple of little lines. 128 times, 256 times. It's so close to the horizon, it's hard to even tell the difference. So what this means is that at the 2 times line, the distance is 2 times my distance from the picture. So if I stand, now I'm going to get blurry for a minute, but if I stand way over here, then I'm about 5 feet away from this painting, then that means that this line would be a 10-foot line. It'd be 10 feet away from the view, and I'd want to paint things appropriately in scale. But if I want to view this picture from close, then I want to paint this as though it's only double this distance, so only like 2 feet away. So you see, all this is a proportion. It's not a specific number of feet. So in my picture, if I put an object at a certain size, then I just use the proportions to scale it down or scale it up according to these markers. I'll just make a hill right off of this 16 times line. Let's just say that it's about yay high. So we come over here, make this guy come down here, like that. And I'm going to stop here. Because what if I put another hill in front of it? Well, I happen to know that if I come down to this line, it's going to double in size if it's the same size hill. So watch, I'll put another one, and I know that if it's a little bigger than this hill, it's going to be a little bigger than twice the size. If it's a little smaller than this hill, it's going to be a little smaller than twice the size. But I'll just make it somewhere close to twice the size. So watch, I'll just bring this up here. Maybe I'll stagger the lines a little bit to make it look like natural land formations. Make that there. Now if I go backwards a line and I want to make a similar size hill, then I make it half the size. So I can take this and extend it out like this. And see, this little hill that I made is about half the size of this one that's on the next line down. Likewise, I can come over here and I can make some more hills. And now we're starting to see just how the size of this hill scales to objects in the foreground, because as I keep doubling it, coming down these lines, I'm seeing that this is going to be one big sucker as it gets right up there by that guy. So I need to go almost all the way off the picture up here. Let's do another one right here. I'm going to make another one going up like this. I'll start here and come down like this. And let's say that there's some rocks in this, so we'll make it kind of jagged. This is now just a straight up, I don't know, maybe a rock cliff, and it's coming down here. So now I can just take all of these hills and just turn them into one formation. So I'll just connect these lines at the top. I'll just say that this is one thing right here. This is just one big cliff that's extending back like this, and then I'll round out the bottoms appropriately. Watch. I'll go like this, round this one out, bring this down to here, maybe it comes down here, comes down here past this guy. Okay, now if I draw horizontal lines, level lines around this object, then let's say close to the top here, we're going to draw a line coming across like this. It's going to curve with the shape of the object. Now look, this is going to curve, and all the curves are downward. And look how the space is getting bigger and bigger as I come forward. And then as I get closer and closer to the horizon, the curves are going to get straighter until they're completely straight when they get to the horizon, like this. Now, I'm not mathematically calculating these distances, I'm just eyeballing this. But if this were a cliff and I was just drawing lines around this, then as they get closer to the horizon, if this were all level lines just going around the contour of this, see, this one's almost straight because it's almost at that horizon line going right through the eye level. And then it reverses when it gets below eye level. If these are all parallel lines, these are all parallel, then these are going to start curving. Let's do one way down here to better illustrate. This one is going to curve upward. It's going to come around that bend. It's going to curve upward around this bend, getting smaller as it goes back. Smaller, smaller, smaller. Same thing with this. Curved, curved. And the curve is less and less as it approaches that center. We'll just do one more right here and just curve it a little bit. Like this. So you see, it's kind of forming this three-dimensional grid overlaying my image. So that's going to be my valley. And I have all these reference points of what the size of my objects in that valley are going to look like. And that's what's going to make it look like it drops down, because there's going to be suddenly smaller objects right here than what are right here, and probably a different color too to represent the faded distance. Let's put some water coming down. This will be a waterfall, and I'm just going to put a body of water right on here. So it's going to be flowing off of this. Let's say there's a waterfall just dropping right down here. Then it's going to make a big pool right here. So back here, I'm going to make the edge of my body of water, you know. And when I'm closer to the background, my vertical lines are not as much. All right? But then I can make vertical lines bigger as I get closer to the foreground. Let's just make it flowing right off the edge of this cliff. You know, we just go. Maybe it has a little pool right there, then it turns and right off the edge of the cliff. And then here, if this body of water, let's say that it's dropping down right here, this will be like where it's going down into that valley. My curves here are going to be a lot more big and extreme. Bring this right down close to your feet like there's a little pool of water here. Maybe it ramps up a little bit. It goes down here by this guy's feet. So now I have this body of water. So you can see that a shape, if it were a circle, that circle would be a lot flatter on the further part of the circle, a lot more bowed on the close part of the circle. So now let's say that this waterfall's coming down here and it's making ripples in this water. I'm going to make ripples. So I'm going to make a circle just like I just now was talking about. Now look how the front of the circle is bowed more than the top of the circle. That's a circle in perspective. The bottom side of it's a little bit more bowed. And watch this. Keep going out like this. Keep bowing it down more like this. Like this. These are just going to be waves. Look, and then it just, boom, it goes off the edge of that. Like this. Maybe make a few more of them in between. Like this. These are just sketch lines I just kind of use as a guide. And then what if there was more than one? What if there was another waterfall hitting right next to it and it was going to go like this? You know, another circle. You'd have waves intersecting each other. Let's do that. Like that. Now I think what I want to do is put a big tree right next to this guy, growing right up in here. Boom, right there. Just coming right over the top of all this stuff. And this tree is just growing kind of sideways. It's going to come right out here to the very foreground. Right? And so I'm going to make this tree, since it's coming right down here where the guy's standing, I'm going to make it in a reasonable comparison to the scale of the guy. So let's make the trunk of it about yay big. To understand the cylinder kind of shape of this, I'm going to use that same model that we did with this one, where I'm going to start to draw lines around it, and they're going to appear very level right at the horizon, and then they're going to gradually bend more and more like this as they get further up this tree. Sorry, it's hard to talk and think really hard at the same time. Okay, now I want to do my distant background here. So I'm just going to put some hills right on the horizon. So let's just put some things in here. I don't know where they are. Maybe we just have one kind of going like this. And I was real careful with all these things that I didn't put them the wrong size in the wrong place. But everything that is beyond this 256 times your distance, it's all in the same vertical space. It's all right on the horizon. So honestly, I don't care how big that hill really is. They're all just going to be right on the horizon after that distance. So I'll just put a few hills here, maybe put another one here. But even with that said, what still is true is the rule of halves and doubles. Half the distance, double the size. Half the size, double the distance. So if I put a big mountain, behind here, I'm making this mountain, watch this, okay. This will be a mountain that's back here. Now because that is obviously layered behind these hills, it's going to appear to be a lot bigger than these hills because according to that rule of halves and doubles, it should be smaller than these. But I'm going to add faded color to this so that it's obviously behind them. And you'll see when I start painting that. So let's do a couple more peaks going up. We're going to put some mountains disappearing beyond that cliff right there. Right here will be a hill. And just to start mapping out my contour of my hill, I'll just start making the same contour. Okay, now I've got some mountains laid out, I got some hills. So the next thing, I think we need another tree. So let's apply the rule of halves and doubles to that tree. I think this would be a good spot right here hanging off of this cliff. So right here on the edge of this, I'm at 4 times. So that means this is going to be 1/4 the size of this tree. So I'll just do it from the width from here to here since I don't have the height of that tree. So 1/4 of that is about right here. So that's how wide I'll make a tree. And we'll make it look like it's the same kind of tree, just so I can apply that cool rule. But then if I take this same tree and I'm going to go half the size, half again, it's going to be 1/4 of the size again if it's back this far. So watch, I'll make another little tree, but I'll go way across the canyon here. Where was that edge? Way over here. Yeah. So right over here on the top of this canyon, I can make another lone tree. And this is 1/4 of the size of this one. So see, this one is starting to get real small. So that guy's just coming up like this. Like that. See, I think that a lot of paintings just don't have an extreme enough difference between the background and the foreground. When we're looking at things in real life, we see the tiniest little thing, and see all this detail, and in our minds it seems like a big object. But if you really scaled it to what you're actually seeing in proportion to the whole frame, it's so tiny. The background takes up this tiny strip in your picture. Just this tiny little strip is your distant background, while all of this stuff is big. If we go up further and further, we keep going half, half, half. By the time we get up to this line that says 64 times, that is 1/64 of the actual size. So I don't even know what 1/64 is, I might have trees going up my hill too, and I can just eyeball the sizes and just make them smaller, smaller, smaller as they go back. But you see what a great tool these lines are for that size reference and not accidentally putting something that is just really wrong looking for its placement in the picture. Now, the last thing I want to put in is clouds, and perspective applies to clouds just as much as it does to any other objects. So if I have a cloud that's way up close, then I'm going to see the underside of that cloud. And if the cloud, I've explained in other videos how a cloud can be something like a tortoise shell in its shape. So if it's way up here and you're looking up at it, then I don't know what the actual size of a cloud is, so I'm just going to make something up. But the shape of it is going to have a lot more of a rounded bottom on it. So we'll just say that there's a cloud right here, right? And it's just going right off the picture. And if this was the underside right here, actually, what we'll do is we'll just say this is the cloud right here, and we'll just go like this, and then we'll just draw these grid lines. I love grid lines. We'll just more curved there. This is the bottom side. It's like a big pancake, right? And then it's coming up like this, it's coming up like this, coming up like this. Big puffy cloud. This looks like more like a UFO now. But this would be the underside of my cloud where I'm going to put the shadow, and this would get lighter and lighter as it comes up here. But now, a far away cloud, if I want to make a cloud, look like it's twice as far away, I'm going to make it half the size. In the sky, I'm not nearly as concerned about wrong placement because clouds are so diverse in size. But let's put one down low now, and you're not going to see as much of the bottom side of the cloud. So the bottom of it is going to appear a lot more flat, maybe just slightly rounded. All right, and let's make it kind of this shape, like this. Then we can make some more. Maybe we make a little one behind this. And then we can put more clouds here. And you might have smaller and smaller clouds going back. I'm not going to do too many. It'd be cool if there was one right above this mountain. So let's make one. These are further away. It's going to, closer things in the sky are going to be higher rather than lower. So we'll go make a cloud right here. And make it kind of disappear in behind this guy. Like that. And then who knows, maybe it'll be covering up some of that peak right there. Bottom of the cloud, shadowed area. Right there. Then come over here. Maybe I can make a couple coming over this ridge, like this. Then the bottom of a bigger cloud, and as it gets closer, the bottom is more round. Another big cloud up in here, like this. Another one hiding behind there. So this is the bottom of a cloud right here. And this is the bottom of a cloud right here that you can't see as much of because it's further away. And this cloud is just hidden back there. So you can see that I am considering perspective in every single object that I put in a picture. But I normally wouldn't draw this all out like this in such detail, making a grid out of every single object. I'm just doing that so that I can show you what I'm thinking the whole time that I'm painting a picture. Perspective is kind of like the packaging for your picture. You may have more talent than you know, but if you don't nail the perspective, it doesn't showcase it like it could. So the good news is that perspective is so logical and mathematical that it might not take as much talent as you think to nail it. Just remember that rule of halves and doubles. That has been the most helpful information in my entire career about perspective. That is that half the size equals double the distance. Half the distance equals double the size. If you just remember that rule, you'll be amazed at what it can do for your paintings.